What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Style in Real Life, a series in which I take YouTube celebrities, public figures, politicians, anybody else I believe who has made an impact and done so through their style, and I help you analyze their style and how it has helped them build the brand, build the persona that they're famous for. Now today, we're going to be talking about one of the bigger names in the YouTube fitness community, Christian Guzman. Now, the fitness community in general has seen a huge boom over the last 10 years. In fact, 8 or 9 years ago, if you would have asked the average guy what his 1 rep max on his deadlift would have been, unless you were a former athlete, he probably would have just given you a blank stare. But because of the growth and proliferation of the fitness community, especially online through YouTube, forums, and Instagram, there is a lot more interest in how to get a better physique. And one of the biggest names within that online fitness community is Christian Guzman. Now, Guzman is a Texas native and a self-proclaimed skinny kid who didn't really start lifting until after some friends invited him to do so in his later years in high school. It was through these early lifting sessions that he fell in love with the sport that eventually would become the way in which he primarily defined himself. He's been active on YouTube since 2012 and has quickly amassed a following and become what many in the industry would call a polarizing pretty boy. He's got a lot of people who really like him and a lot of people who really don't. And while debates and conversations about whether or not he's natty are better left for other channels, what I want to do is talk about his style and his presence and how he has used both of those to build the brand and the persona that we see when we watch him online. Because whether you like him or not, Guzman has made a name for himself, and part of the way that he's done that is through his style, his appearance, and his presentation. If you were to try to peg Guzman's style with one single word, that word would be streetwear. It's a fitting aesthetic for a man who spends most of the time either in the gym or building a brand that focuses on athletic apparel. Now, he started off as you'd expect most guys to. Solid t-shirts, basic button-ups, and the occasional college shirt. However, as his channel began to grow, he started to go against the grain because what most YouTubers in the fitness world will do is they try to take as much of their gym clothing and wear it in as many real-life situations as they possibly can. Whereas Guzman has done the opposite. Rather than taking the gym wear everywhere, he's started to inject more of his streetwear stuff into what he's wearing when he's at the gym. Let me tell you what I mean by that. This aesthetic evolution is most obvious in his brand, Alphalete. Now, if you go back and look at the early days of the brand, they were not so different from any of the other brands, and especially from Gymshark, whom he was sponsored by before. Really bold colors, really bold, broad lettering, and big logos. But lately, especially with his most recent collection, Guzman and Alphalete have started to release things that are more lifestyle choices. They're doing things like asymmetrical shirts, scoop necks, pocket tees, even fishtails, things that you don't see in the gym. They're designed to be lifestyle clothing, but he actually started wearing them while he's working out as well. So he's taking it in the opposite direction. Now, that's not to say that he doesn't spend a fair amount of time in gym clothes or athleisure. At any quick perusal of his Instagram account or just watching a few of his videos on YouTube will tell you otherwise. He definitely enjoys his gym wear, but he's also starting to go the other direction. Both in and out of the gym, his style is typified by 2 different variables: slim fits and minimal patterns. His typical uniform consists of a simple t-shirt, which may or may not have an Alphalete logo, a pair of skinny jeans, which will usually have something about them that makes them interesting, whether that's the fact that they're distressed, they're moto jeans, or some other factor to them, and then lastly, an interesting pair of shoes. And speaking of his shoes, they are one of, if not the key distinguishing factor of Guzman's style. Throughout a lot of his videos, you'll see him wearing a coveted pair of Yeezys. And the reason that this is interesting is because it gives away a few things about him. First is that he has access to a hard-to-find item. If you've ever tried to buy a pair of these shoes and you have a bot that's helping you out, good luck, because you're not buying original. You're having to pay 3 or 4 times the price from resellers online. Now, whether or not Guzman actually has access to getting them off the line or he buys them through resellers, either way, he's willing to spend a lot more on a pair of shoes than the typical guy, and that says something about him as well. The third thing is that he's aware of different trends and what's going on in the world outside of the gym. And the fourth is that he is willing to demonstrate his success in ways that are both subtle and not so subtle. And again, if you've seen a pair of Yeezys, There's nothing subtle about those shoes. In fact, the Yeezys are so interesting because you don't accidentally end up with a pair of those. You have to go out of your way in both finding them and being willing to spend the money to get up a pair. And Guzman actually has a couple different pairs in multiple colorways. He knows what he's doing when it comes to purchasing his shoes. So on top of his Yeezys, Guzman leans towards two different styles of shoes. The first one is one that we don't see as often anymore, but it still makes the occasional appearance on his channel, and that is the driving loafer. These are attention-getting because they are bright, they are in your face, there's nothing subtle about them, especially when you contrast the fact that it's a driving loafer with gym wear. It's not like you're gonna be doing a set of squats in something like these, but he wears them when he's not in the gym because it helps flesh him out and make him not look like he's a one-dimensional character. The other reason that he wears these so well is because he keeps everything else in his outfit so simple. By wearing dark jeans and a dark or a simple shirt, minimal colors, and having a bright red or a bright blue pair of loafers, it creates a lot of pop without a lot of conflict or distraction. And it shows that he pays attention to detail and he cares about how he looks. And then that third style of shoe that he wears is a boot. Now lately it's been a Chelsea boot, but he's had a few different pairs of boots in the past. Now these work because, yeah, they're not as bright or in your face as a lot of the sneakers that he wears or the loafers, but they're still something that is very on point and very on trend now. And I also think that they're interesting because boots have a heritage within Texas, where he's from. Now, obviously a Chelsea boot is going to be something that leans a little bit more metro, a little bit more mod than a pair of cowboy boots. But by having boots on, he's still making a little nod, albeit a subtle one, to his roots and where he's from. So once you spend some time watching his videos, scrolling through Instagram, you'll see that he has a very consistent style. And yes, it's evolved, but it's evolved slowly and he doesn't make any drastic changes. In so many ways, that's a good thing. But there's one problem, and it's not something that shows up very often, but when it does, it has a negative effect on him. The problem is that he doesn't execute very well on things that are outside of his day-to-day uniform. A very good example of that is when he's wearing suits. Now, one of the most recent examples of this is when he and his buddies were at the YouTubers retreat. He had a vlog where they all went to Zara and they picked up a couple of suits, and the fit of these things is poor, the lapels are bad, it just doesn't look very good. And I don't think that that's because Guzman has poor style. It's because he hasn't taken the principles that he's learned with his streetwear and had the opportunity to apply them to his suiting game. So what I personally hope for is that he will take his good execution on his current style and branch it out a bit. I would love to see him do really well with suiting and in other environments in which he can't get away with wearing the stuff that he normally does, but it still pays off for him to be well dressed. It'll be interesting to see if he ends up doing it. Because when you think about it, a man who could afford to drive Land Rovers, Ferraris, and Lamborghinis is really missing some good opportunities when it comes to his suit game or his formal game when all he's doing is throwing on cheap Zara garbage. Now, obviously you can't talk about Guzman's style without talking about his aesthetic when it comes to his vehicles, because that's a huge part of his personal brand. That's a huge part of why people get initially interested in him. The man drives loud, in-your-face, fun cars, which is all entirely consistent about him, because just like you don't accidentally find yourself wearing a pair of Yeezys, you don't just end up driving a Ferrari. You have to have the means, you have to have the desire, you have to make the decision that you're going to drive a vehicle like that. And that's one of the things I love most about Guzman, is everything that he does, from building his channel to the way he dresses, to the things that he does with his vehicles, his home, and other variables in his life. Everything that he does seems to happen very intentionally. He thinks things through, he decides what he's going to do, and then he executes. And the other reason I like that so much is because he's been successful. He's had a really good run on YouTube. He's been really successful with Alphalete. And unlike a lot of other people who feel like they need to be almost shy about their success or they need to keep it under wraps, Guzman is out there and he's shouting it out to other people. Now, this is one of the things that's the most polarizing about him. A lot of people say, well, yeah, he's a douchebag. He wants everybody to know how rich he is. He wants everybody to see how fast his cars are. I think that there's an element of that in him because honestly, there's an element of that in all of us. But what I see from him is that he has been able to attain a level of success from starting his own thing and doing it with a level of dedication that most people don't accomplish. And what he wants to do is help his viewers accomplish that same thing. So rather than, here's what I have and you can't have it, what he's doing by dressing the way he does, driving what he does, living where he does, is saying, here's what I have and you can do it too. All right, so based on all this information, I'm going to break down Guzman's style archetypes as follows. I'm going to give him 92% rakish, 5% rugged, and 3% refined. Now, if this is your first time watching this channel and you don't know what I mean when I say the terms rugged, refined, and rakish, I encourage you to go check out this link right here. This takes you to a very quick quiz. It's 7 questions long, and it helps you break down what your style archetype is, rugged, refined, or rakish. Because this is going to help you on your journey to dressing better. It gives you a direction in which you can head rather than just deciding, I want to dress better and I have no idea what that looks like. So I want you guys to sound off in the comments. I want to know what you think of Guzman's style. Do you think that there's anything that I'm overreading, anything obvious that I missed, especially for you guys who are fans of his and have been watching him for a lot longer than I have? I think he's a great personality. I'm really excited for the success that he's had. I hope that he continues to develop even more, but I want to know what you guys think about his clothing. So leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.